Okay, so today we are going to have this is second session for the MPC 01 Block 1 Unit 4. Um, so in the session 1 we covered the two models, the Atkinson models and the WOG model. So now we are going to go to the level of recall. Excuse me. So I start reading, uh, and as we read, we discuss this. Excuse me. In a report by P.I. Zinchenko, 1962 and 1981, a Russian psychologist, the matter of how a subject interacts with the material to be learned and committed to memory was introduced. The basic notion was that words encoded by deep means would be retained in incidental memory better than if encoded by other superficial means. So, what he is saying that if the word is encoded by deep means, I didn't understand this. Words encoded by deep means, uh, and if it is encoded with the deep means probably my interpretation to this is the author has it is the words which author has more at most interest basically would be retained in incidental memory better than if encoded by other superficial means. Thus, the memorability of words are profoundly influenced by the goal of the subject at the time the material was presented. Okay, so if I think it's coming in line with what I'm saying. If the words are of interest to the author or the receiver, then it makes encoding better, and different goals were thought to. Is I'm muted, unmute, right? Everyone can hear me, right? Just confirm. Anyone can confirm. Can see the. I'm audible. Can someone confirm? Someone on chat confirmed it. Yes. Okay. Sangeeta said yes. Okay. Different goals were thought to activate different system of connection because subject have different orientations toward the material. The thesis was presented in an experiment. I'm here. Was tested in an experiment in which subjects were given 10 series of 4 words. The first word was to be connected to one of the other words, but the instructions varied for each of the 3 groups. For example, a series is house, window, building, fish. In the first condition, the subject were asked to identify the word whose meaning was different from the first word, house. And in this case is fish, right? In the second condition, subjects were asked to make a concrete connection between the first word and the one of the other word. So house will have a concrete connection with window. In the third condition, the subject were asked to make a logical connection between the first word and the one of the other 3 words. So in this case, house has a logical connection with building. Okay, now let's see what is the interpretation from this. Zinchenko thought that thought that by altering the instructions, the subject would not only have different goals towards the material, but also be required to examine each item for meaning. After a brief interrupting task, the subject were asked to recall the items. In the condition in which subject form logical connections between the first word and another word, recall of target word occurred with great frequency than the other conditions. Recall of concrete relationship word was greater than the no meaning condition. So if you remember, the 3 conditions was given, one with a no meaning, one with has a concrete connection, and one with a logical connection. So the logical connections, what is they're saying is the encoding is more relevant, and because of which the recall of the encoding was faster. And then the second one comes is the concrete relationship. But the one where the number one condition was where though no relationship, the recall was poor. Okay. So, and it makes sense also, right? That's how even as a human being we work, right? So if the if there's some conversation, like now we have a teaching, right? So in the class, when we sit in a class, when we learn something, it is contextual, and uh, when it is explained in more logical way, it goes in our, our memory recall is faster. But if it's just reading, probably we won't be able to, right? I think the same. So um as a psychologist, this is very very important. What do you call? Uh, I think very important input. Uh, I used in my practice. It's related to this, something called as reframing. Uh, just a little distraction, but I think it will be helpful to you guys as a psychologist when you come. So, reframing is to tell people that people are sometimes engrossed with some kind of situation. So just to give a reframing, the someone, a lady who is like obsessed with cleanliness. So she's kind of she don't want, when she wants to see the carpet, she wants to see a clean carpet, right? No footsteps on the carpet. She don't want to see carpet disturbed. So she will kind of vacuuming again and again, making the carpet clean and everything. So when she's sitting with the psychologist, and she at least able to identify her problem, that she feel disturbed if the carpet is not clean and things. So the reframing, the logical, the now this is how the psychologist connect her with the logical another, some logical meaning. So she says, what do you, if carpet is clean, what does it mean? It means in your house there is no one in your house. If the carpet is not clean, that means you have a family. So what do you want in your life? Do you want family or you don't want family? Now this is kind of a, now this connection with the family, right? Now this clicks her. Oh, that means family is my first preference, right? So being family is my preference, it is like the non-cleanliness will be there. Some cleanliness, non-cleanliness will be there. So if you need pure cleanliness, there's no family. So this is called reframing, and so in the reframing, the if you do a logical connection, I think it will make more sense. Anyone wants to say anything on this reframing? Okay. So we go further. Thus, the level of recall, as Zinchenko called it, is determined by the goal of an action. In an experiment cited, we can see that when subjects were given a learning set or instructions to process materials at different levels, to use contemporary jargon, recall of the materials was affected greatly. Because the original paper was published in the Russians and not widely distributed, it has not been incorporated into the larger framework of memory models. Nevertheless, as we shall see, the experiment presented by Zinchenko, because of its theoretical importance, the concepts of levels of processing, which has had a profound influence on cognitive psychology, has important consequences for our conceptualization of human memory. Okay, good. So any questions, any discussions before we move on to the next topic? Yes. So 4.5, next topic, levels of processing. So Craig and Lockhart, that's the, so here we see every, there is some psychologist references there with every model here. Okay. uh, it is likely that progress in the early stages of scientific development is made more by reaction and counter reaction than by the discovery of great immutable truth. So Craig and Lockhart in 1962, levels of processing model, LOP model. Okay. So in the exam may come, they describe the LOP model, so don't get confused. It is a level of processing. As a reaction against the boxes in the head scheme of memory is consistent with that view. They take the position that data can be better described by a concept of memory based on levels of processing. The general idea is that incoming stimuli are subjected to a series of analysis, starting with shallow sensory analysis and proceeding to deeper, more complex, abstract, and semantic analysis. Right? Semantic is more conceptual, right? We talked about an more analytical, that's a semantic analysis. Uh, so whether a Dr. Arti, it was a hypothalamus, right? No, no, not hypothalamus, which is the organ. There is a something hippo, right, from the first brain or the front brain, some organ which is kind of responsible for allowing for the short-term to long-term memory. Yeah, someone answering in chat. Hippocampus, correct, 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 correct. Yeah, that's good. Hippocampus. Okay, we continue. Thank you for that. Whether a stimulus is processed at a shallow or deep stage depends on the nature of the stimulus and the time available for processing. An item processed at the deep level is less likely to be forgotten than one processed in a shallow level. Less likely to be forgotten. So deep level processing remained there. At the earliest level, incoming stimuli was subjected to sensory and feature analysis. At a deeper level, the item may be recognized by means of pattern recognition and extraction of meaning. At a still deeper level, it may engage the subject's long-term associations. With deeper processing, a great degree of semantic and cognitive analysis is undertaken. This is very important, right? So deeper processing, a great degree of semantic and cognitive analysis is undertaken. Consider word recognition. For example, at the preliminary stages, the visual configuration may be analyzed according to such physical or sensory feature as lines and angles. Okay. Later stages are concerned with matching the stimuli with stored information. For example, now we are talking, the example is recognition as a word. Okay. For example, a recognition that one of the letters correspond to the pattern identified as A. At the highest level, the recognized pattern may trigger association, images, or stories on the basis of the subject's past experience with the world. Yeah, so when the recognition comes, so I'm sure if I even the recognition, I'm sure everybody's mind will throw some picture or more some memory coming, right? So maybe in the school or college time, in the sports you got recognized, or during studies, if you can recognize your the recognition happen on the stage, probably that memory get flashed, right? So everybody has some recognition, or some parent giving pat, you know. I'm sure everybody's memory is different when just with the word called recognition. Okay, that is what is the significant use in Craig and Lockhart view is that we are capable of perceiving a meaningful levels before we analyze information at a more primitive level. Thus, levels of processing are more a spread of processing with highly familiar, meaningful stimuli more likely to be processed at a deeper level than less meaningful stimuli. That we can perceive at a deeper level before analyzing at a shallow level cast grave doubts on the original levels of processing formulation. Perhaps we, I'm here, perhaps we are dealing simply with different types of processing, with the types not following any constant sequence. There are different type of processing, but there is no sequence to it. If all types are equally accessible to the incoming stimulus, then the notion of levels could be replaced by a system that drops the notion of levels or depth but retains some of the Craig and Lockhart's ideas about rehearsal and about the formation of memory traces. So here it is saying that there are levels of processing and they are not in a sequence. There is no sequence which says that this has to be sequence for this and that. Okay. Now coming further, we are still in the Craig and Lockhart's model. A model that is closer to their original ideas is shown in the figure 1.4.3, where it is, there it is, 1.4.3. Well, let's see the model, study this is called maintenance, rehearsal, deeper levels, proofreading, gist, elaborated rehearsal. Okay, some proofreading showing downward kind of triangle, and gist is in a triangle. Okay, let's understand what is this model means. The figure depicts the memory activation involved in proofreading a passage as contrasted with that involved in reading the same passage for the gist of the material. Okay. Proofreading, that is looking at the surface of the passage, involves elaborate shallow processing and minimal semantic processing. So it's like a browsing of some pages, right? Some pages we are browsing. So this is more called a proofreading. ऊपर ऊपर से पढ़ना बोलते हैं जिसको, मतलब कि बहुत not a deep level reading, right? So that proofreading is what he is saying that involves shallow processing and minimal semantic processing. Reading for gist, that is trying to get the essential points, involves minimal shallow processing or maintenance rehearsal, held in memory without elaboration, but elaborate semantic processing. So anything now, even if you're reading a report, or let's say you're reading somebody's thesis or some research paper, or for that matter any books you are reading, if you are trying to read it with and taking notes of it, highlighting it, finding out some information out of it, so it is more a, I will say, a semantic kind of processing. So in that, but here involves minimal shallow processing or maintenance rehearsal. So it is more a elaborated kind of processing when you're doing for a gist. As a result of some studies, Craig and Watkins in 1973 and Lockhart and Craig and Jacobi in 1975, the idea that stimuli were always processed through an unvarying sequence of stages was abandoned. The idea that stimuli are always processed through an unvarying sequence of stages was abandoned. So earlier it was, they said that it is the sequence doesn't matter, but now they drop that idea and they say that there is a sequence, like. While the general principle that some sensory processing must precede semantic analysis was retained. Okay, so now I'm here. Levels of processing versus information processing. Now here actually we are now I think going to read about the level of processing versus information processing. Information processing models of memory have generally stressed structural component, for example, sensory store, short-term memory and long-term memory, dealing with processing, for example, attention, coding, rehearsal, transformation of information and forgetting, as operations that are tied sometimes uniquely to the structural components. Okay, they call it structural component. The sense, should I bring in the Atkins model? Let me bring the Atkins model so that for those who are attending it for the first time. So this is the Atkins models where there is a memory store, sensory memory is there, short-term memory, long-term memory. Okay, retrieval. So this all uh, typically those, if you are in computers and IT, you will understand this how computer actually works also. Okay, so going back to the okay, so those all are called structural components. Okay, so don't relate it to structural components like in a building or something like that, but these are the structural component of recalling the memory, right? Memory stores, short-term memory, long-term memory, and however, another approach is to postulate process and then to formulate a memory system in terms of this operation. Craig and Lockhart have taken just such a position that their implicit criticism of the information processing model suggests that it is falling on hard times. I didn't understand what they mean, but let's see, probably the further reading answers this statement. Where information processing models of memory stress the sequence of stages through which information is moved and processed. This alternate view argues that memory traces are formed by as a byproduct of perpetual processing. Okay, let's read it again. Where information processing models of memory stress that the sequence of stages through which information is moved and processed, this alternate viewpoint argues that memory traces are formed as a byproduct of perpetual processing. So perpetual processing is like as the information is moved and processed, uh, the memory traces get formed. Is probably that is what they want to mean by this statement. Thus, the durability of memory is conceptualized as a function of the depth of processing, which is of course obvious. The durability of the memory is conceptualized as a function of the depth of processing. Information that is not given full attention and is analyzed only to a shallow level is soon forgotten. Information that is deeply processed, attended to, fully analyzed, and enriched by associations of images is long lasting. So anything informations, there are associations, either logical association, concrete association, or uh, you know there are more images is there. So images is one of the another sensory, right? So it's long lasting. So this is in the corporate presentations when you do, if you try to just speak, probably you won't remember, right? So that's where the PPT become a very popular way of presenting. In a PPT you have some images, you're showing some images, then you are talking, and so because of which the author of the who is presenting is trying to get his audience to have a more long lasting memory. Okay. The level of processing model is not free of criticism. The criticism includes that number one, it seems to say little more than that meaningful events are well remembered, a mundane conclusion. Of course, it's a mundane conclusion. So little more, it is vague and generally untestable. It is circular in that any event that are well remembered are designated deeply processed with no objective and independent index of depth available. So index of depth, definitely we are saying yeah, okay, some content is deeply absorbed. Okay, so if for someone who is, let's say, environmentalist, and if the subject is about environment, it will be deeply processed in that person because the subject is of his interest. But what is the depth with which he has absorbed? There is no measure of that. I don't know whether there's any other theories which may calculate the depth of it. So criticisms are, it seems to say little more than that meaningful events are well remembered, a mundane conclusion. It's a mundane calculation. The meaningful events, of course, will be remembered, right? So, so there is nothing much great they are saying in their theory. That's what the criticism is about. It is vague and generally untestable. They're saying it is, the concept is not testable there. And second is there is no index. So one clear difference between the boxes in the head theory, Vogt and Normal and Atkinson and Shiffrin, and the level of processing theory, Craig and Lockhart, is their respective notions concerning rehearsal. So everybody is talking about rehearsal, like remembering. So more and more you do, more and more it goes into long-term memory. In the former, that is in the Vogt, Normal and Atkinson models, this the model we just show you, that is the Atkinson and Shiffrin model, okay? There also they talk about rehearsal. In fact, uh, Vogt and Norman also said about the rehearsal. In the former, rehearsal or repetition of information in STM serves the function of transferring it to the long-lasting memory store. So it's like, again I'm saying, if someone is like, if some um, laborer kind of doing the building work, and he knows how to put the bricks, how much cement to put, so he's doing this job again and again and again and again, and so much rehearsal is there that how to do the job is, this is in long-term memory, it comes naturally to him, right? It's the recalling is not a problem for him. But probably, let's say you are not and you try to do something like that, it will be very difficult for you, right? There is no memory for you to how to do these things. So where I was. Yeah. So there it was. In the later, rehearsal is conceptualized as either maintaining information at one level of analysis or elaborating information by processing it to a deeper level. In the later means the Craig and Lockhart model which we are reading actually. This is the crux of the that I just highlighted. In the later, rehearsal is conceptualized as either maintaining information at one level of analysis or elaborating information by processing it to a deeper level. The first type, maintenance rehearsal, will not lead to a better retention. Maintenance rehearsal is like a proofreading. Craig, Craig and Tulving, 1975, tested the idea that words that are deeply processed should be recalled better than those that are less so. So it's obvious, right? If the words you will use it again. So for example, before this, cognition is not a word which you know. You probably have not used it many times. Now because you are reading this chapter, cognitions as a word has come so many times. You are reading the cognitive psychology itself, right? So now it is deeply processed in you, right? So Turing tested the idea that the words that are deeply processed should be recalled better than those that are less so. They did this by having subjects simply rate words as their structural, phonemic, or semantic aspects. Cracked and Tulvin measured both the time to make a decision and recognition of the rated words. The data obtained are interpreted as showing that deeper processing takes longer to accomplish. A recognition of encoded words increases as the function of the level to which they are processed, with those words engaging semantic aspects better recognized than those engaging only in the phonological or structural aspects. The second statement is very long. It says recognition of encoded words increases as a function of the level to which they are processed, with those words engaging semantic aspects better recognized than those engaging only in the phonological structure. So there are other engaging words to that which will help in having a better memory. Okay. So let's say if this is reward. Okay, so reward is a word, of course you recognize it, but if you say that is more deeply, so then I will say financial reward. My interpretation of this meaning is the financial reward. Now financial reward has more because there's a more engaging semantic, another word is there which is financial to that reward. So financial reward is making it, that semantic word is making it more deeper. Okay, so someone who is worried about take care financial as a the financial reward goes more deeper, then I say the spiritual reward. So spiritual reward probably it's not more go more deeper, right? Word is reward is my interpretation of what number two he wants to say. Okay, so that ends the Craig and Tulving. Okay, it's a very long one and levels of processing by Craig and the Lockhart. Uh, so I don't know how much you understand it, and but tukde tukde mein if you understand it, there are the levels of processing. If I summarize it, in earlier they said that level of processing is random. Then they say the level of processing is not random. It is, there is a sequence to it, and then they are saying this information rehearsal and conceptually maintain information one level analysis and elaborative information processing to a deeper level. So they're more talking about how you can go deeper, deeper. So probably I don't know if there is any some videos or something on this in Google. Probably it will make more understandable. Okay, should we go more? We have time, so we complete this 4.6. We are on the 8th page of this self-reference effect. What is the chat saying? I don't know, Jay. What is that you want to say? What is that? I'm sorry, I'm not very good in emos and symbols. Okay, let's go to self-reference effect. New light was. Okay, Jay wants to say something. It's going good. Carry on. Okay, thank you. So self-reference effect. That's a 4.6 we read now. What is self-reference effect? So new light was shed on the levels of processing concepts when Rogers, Keeper, and Krieger showed that self-reference is a powerful method variable. Now self-reference is something we are talking about. What is self-reference? Let's see. Using a method similar to that of the Craig and Tulwing, they asked subject to evaluate the list of 40 adjectives on one of the four tasks hypnotized to vary in depth or semantic richness. Included are structural, phonemic, semantic, and self-reference task. So here is hope so there is a structural is more we are talking about long-term short-term memory. Phonemic is more the words which is looks more sounds good to hear. Semantics is more we are talking about where the more concept and analytic is there. And the fourth one is self-reference. Let's see what is self-reference means. As the Craig and Tulwing study, it was assumed that the words are words more deeply coded during rating should be recalled better than those words with a shallow coding. I will repeat this statement again. As in the Craig and Tulwing study, it was assumed that words more deeply coded during rating should be recalled better than those words with shallow coding. During rating, I don't know during rating means what they mean. That's why I got confused here. Of course, it is assumed that deeply coded words and then the shallow coding, recall of the shallow coding will be of course less than the deeply coded one. After the subjects rated the words, they were asked to free recall as many of the words they had rated as possible. I don't know how they've been asked to rate those. I don't know. Okay, they being asked to recall. They had rated as possible. Rated as possible. Okay. Recall was poor for the words rated structurally and ascended through those phonemically rated and semantically rated self-reference words were recalled best. Okay, okay. So these are the four criterias are being used: structural, phonemic, semantic, and self-reference. These are the four ways, the four uh, being asked to, and this is that the words which are self-reference are recalled best. The narcissistic trait modification of the original experiment have been conducted in several laboratories with the results being about the same. Narcissistic trait means the negative words, okay? Some have argued that self-reference tasks are stored in some spatial memory systems. Still, we are about to see what is a self-reference means. Certainly, if you are asked to evaluate a personality trait as being self-descriptive, such as greedy, loving, or angry, you are engaging a very powerful self-schema, an organized system of internal attributes that is constellated around the topic of I, me, mine. Obvious, right? So self-descriptive is something I, me, mine, something, okay, and it is with some kind of emotions there. It's a greedy, loving, angry, and all those things. We also call this the narcissistic trait. Okay, greedy. Since we all know a great deal about ourselves and are emotionally, if not intellectually, deeply invested in ourselves. Wi-Fi बोलते हैं ना, what's in it for me? Okay, everything, what's in it for me? So that's why we are deeply invested in ourselves only. We are not interested in what Dr. Arti is thinking about this today's session, okay, or what Jay is thinking about. I'm thinking of what I'm learning from the system. So it's always I, me, and mine. Okay. So we have reached an elaborated internal network available for storing self-information. So there is a memory which stores information about yourself only. Because of this complex internal self structures, we can more easily organize new information as it might refer to ourselves than other. More mundane information. See Beliza 1930 for several important studies on this theme. Other more, so anything about myself, I'll be, I think there is a special memory, that's what they are saying. And when they ask the subject to recall this four attributes, again four different attributes, semantic, phonemic and structural and self-reference, the self-reference memory recalls was faster. I am beautiful, I am handsome, I am rich, I am so and so, I read faster, I read very strong, I'm very strong on reading, I'm very strong in this sports, very strong in that. So all I things is a self-reference, right? So they're saying that this recall are fasters. Okay. Whether or not these rating memories are stored in different parts of the brain remains a question. But it is a good hunch that plenty of previous brain space is given over to the narcissistic traits. So those people who keep saying I, in the team meetings, or in your team, if you are working in organizations, you will come across the narcissistic people there who always says about I. So I did this, I did that, So they will never give any credit to the teams. So these are more narcissistic. So there's a narcissistic trait in everyone. It's not like, but it is just those who are super narcissistic. That in that the trait is very high. Okay, they they grow to some extent, but then they have a big fall after that, because at some time there's a teamwork. If it doesn't work, then they don't grow. Good. I think this is pretty, self-reference is pretty good to understand. This compared to the crack model, which is थोड़ा सा ऊपर से bouncer है वो थोड़ा सा. Okay, now coming to 4.7, we have 6 minutes. Let's see whether we can go over there. The connectionist parallel distributed processing model of memory. Okay, and this is Rumhalt and MacLeod. Now they are coming kind of parallel processing. Let's read. Many people have been associated with this model of human cognition, but David Rumhalt and James McLennan have done the most of the formalize the theory. Essentially, the model is neutrally inspired, concerned with the kind of processing mechanism that is the human mind. Is it a type of von Neumann computer or Joniac in which information is processed in sequential steps? Alternately, might the human mind process information in a massively distributed, mutually interactive parallel system in which various activities are carried out simultaneously through excitation and or inhabitation of neural cells? PDPers opt for later explanations. Now, who is PDPer? What is PDPers? Parallel distributed processing. Okay. The parallel distributed processingers opt for later explanation. So if you see, yes, our mind is a parallel processing, right? Many things goes on. While we are thinking of this, we are thinking that there's a lot of processing happening in the, this PDP, right, distributed processing model, assume that information processing take place through the interaction of a large number of simple processing elements called units, each sending excitatory and inhibitory signals to other units. These units may stand for possible guesses about letters in a string of words or notes on a score. In other situations, the unit may stand for possible goals and actions such as reading a particular letter or playing a specific note. Proponents suggest that PDP models are concerned with the description of the internal structure of a large units of cognitive activity such as reading, perceiving, processing sentences, and so on. So parallel distributed processing is model are concerned with the description of internal structure of large units of cognitive activity such as reading, perceiving, processing sentences, and so on. The connectionist model or the PDP model attempts to describe memory from the even finger-grained analysis of processing units with resemble neurons. Furthermore, the connectionist model is based on the development of laws that governs the representation of knowledge in memory. One additional feature of PDP model of memory is that it is not just a model of memory, it is also a model of action and representation of knowledge. So, because when it is a parallel processing, the earlier theory of a sequential processing won't go, right? It has to have something different. Because when there's a parallel processing is there, like it's like you have parallelly connected hundreds of computers, right? And uh, so 100 computers is kind of giving those who are in IT understand with today's big data processing how it is happening, and that. Fundamental assumptions of the PDP model is that mental process take place through a system of highly interconnected units. So mental process, right? We talk about mental process in the initial take place through a system of highly interconnected units which take on activation values and communicate with other units. So I think they have not used the word neuron so far, but this unit may I think later they may call it as a neuron. So unit are simple processing elements that stand for possible hypotheses about the nature of things, such as letters in a display, the rules that govern syntax, and goals of action. For example, the goal of typing a letter on a keyboard or playing a note on the piano. Okay, so units can be compared to atoms. Now, those who knows the atom structure, okay, we have proton, neutrons, and so. So units can be compared to atoms in which both the building blocks for more complete structures and combine with others of their kind to form a larger networks. A neuron is other. Okay, so they now use the word neuron. So a neuron in the brain is a type of unit that combines with other neurons in a parallel processing mode to form a larger cell. So now they introduce the word neuron here. Okay, and it is called neural network. Units are organized into modules. Such much of the atoms are organized into molecules. Like H2O, in H2O, it is a hydrogen and two hydrogen and oxygens, so which makes a molecule. So the three atoms are there. The number of units per module range from 1,000 to millions. Each unit receives information from other modules and after processing passes information to other modules. In this model, information is received, is permeated throughout the model and leaves traces behind when it has passed through. These traces change in strength, sometimes called weight, of the connections between individual units in the model. Okay, so the strength of memory is defined with uh, the weight between the two neurons, how much they are connected with, how good they are connected. A memory trace, such as a friend's name, may be distributed over many different connections. The storage of information, for example, friend's name is thought to be a content addressable. That is, we can access the information in memory on the basis of its attributes. You can recall your friend's name if I show you a picture of him, tell you where he lives, or describe what he does. All of those attributes may be used to access the name in memory. Or, of course, some cues are better than others. So I think it's given by the example of a friend as a memory kind of. Even though the memory is, even though the theory is abstract, it touches real life activities. To continue with the examples of your friend's name, suppose I ask, what is the name of the man you play tennis with? Such an inquiry gives at least two content addressable cues, man and the tennis partner. If you play tennis with only one man and you know his name, then the answer should be easy. If you have many partners who are men, then the answer may be impossible. Additional information, for example, the man with the beard, the left-handed player, the guy with red tennis short, the dude with the rocket-like serve, the chap with the Boston Terrier, and so forth, may easily focus the search. You can imagine how very narrow the search would be if all of these attributes were associated with only one person. The man you play tennis with has a beard, is left-handed, wears red tennis shorts, has a short serve, and has a terrier. Okay, if I don't know, like when someone get a brain stroke and the doctors are trying to, you know, get his when they want to check his memory, right? They kind of put this question. First question will be like, where you live, what's the name of your wife, simple like one attribute question, something. But when and as they go little complex, they want to know how. So they kind of start asking the questions which is with additional information. It's like a Google search we do. Like in Google search, we may do one simple search first, and then we may go more and more specific. So it is same like same here. In real life, each of these attributes may be associated with more than one person. You may know several people who have a short serve or have a beard. If that is the case, it is possible to recall names other than the intended one. However, if the categories are specific and mutually exclusive, retrieval is likely to be accurate. How can a parallel distributed processing modular PDP modular concept of memory keep these interfering components from running into each other? According to this model, information is represented in memory in terms of numerous connections with other units. If an attribute is part of the number of different memory that is activated, for example, what was your friend's name, then it will tend to excite all the memories in which the attribute is a part. One way interfering components are kept from overrunning the system is to conceptualize the relationship between unit as being subject to inhibitory laws. Thus, when we identify the person you play tennis with a man, in theory, we inhibit all searches for people who are women. When we add that he has a Boston Terrier, then we do not search for the names of the people with whom you do not play tennis, but who do not own a Boston Terrier. Consider the following example of prototype learning suggested by MacLeod and Rumelhart. A small boy sees many different dogs, each only once and each with a different name. All the dogs have slightly different features but can be considered a variations of the prototype dog, the epitome of dogness. The boy forms a memory for a prototypical dog on the basis of experience with exemplar dogs. As in the case of faces, the boy is likely to recognize the prototype dog as a dog, even if he has never seen it. Of course, the boy is not likely to remember the names of each of the individual dogs, though the most recently seen dog may still be in memory. The rationale offered by the connectionist model of prototype formation in the case of boy and his prototype dog is that each time a boy sees a dog, a visual pattern of activation is produced over several of the units in the module. In contrast, the name of the dog produces a reduced pattern of activation. The combined activation of all exemplar dogs sums to the prototype dog, which may be a stable memory representation. Thus, the model, more detailed than presented here, seems to account for this form of memory quite nicely. A connectionist model of memory has won many disciples in the past few years. In fact, all modern researchers will probably go for it. Its popularity is due to the part of its elegant mathematical models, its relationship to neural networks, and its flexibility in accounting for diverse forms of memory. So neural networks is something which is what I said earlier, right? So neurons, when they connect to each other, they call neural networks. So neural network is one of the mathematical models, and based on that mathematical model is what they predict the brain unit work like that. Well, this was pretty easy for me because I'm from IT and I'm ex IT and I was in big data. So this was pretty easy for me to. I'm not sure whether it is easy for you. So any questions for you in the PDP model? I'm sure there's maybe a pet question also in the exam. So yes, Sarita, you said something. What?
Yeah, I was saying no question.
No questions. Okay. I think we exceeded time by 10 minutes. So should we sum it up this chapter, unit 4? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in summary, there are many different theories and model of information processing that focus on different aspects of perceiving, remembering, and reasoning. There are many constant themes of information processing regardless of the specific theories in which one subscribes. Almost all ideas related to how information becomes stored in memory agree that the learner more deeply and meaningfully process information that is presented in a context-rich manner. One of the most important agreements is that elaboration is the key to permanently storing information in a way that facilitates its quick retrieval when it is needed. Most theories hold that mind contains some type of framework into which new information is applied. This is common, I think. Most theory hold that mind contains some kind of framework. So it could be neural network or the structure like long-term memory, short-term memory, all those things. This structure is multi-leveled and has varying degree of specificity. So specification is different, right? New information can be matched with, compared to, contrasted to, joined with, or modified to fit into existing structures. The formation of and continual building of these structures then is critical in order to process information. Thus, in place, structural systems allows for differing levels of complexity of information processing. Okay, so that brings the end of this section. So there are questions uh, like describe the Atkinson-Shiffrin model of information processing. I showed you that diagram. You have to describe the diagram. Compare information processing and level of processing models of memory. So compare means that's Vogue and Atkinson models that you have to compare. How does this connectionist PDP models handle memory? All neurons, neural network, that's something which you have to answer. What is meant by level of recall, level of processing, self-reference effect? So self-reference, you understand that level of recall is the semantic, structural, that I think that all will get covered here. What are the basic principles and models of information processing? We read about different models, right? So Vogue to Atkins and neural networks and all those things. How does organization in long-term memory take place? Organization in long-term memory take place. So I think there is more. You can give the answer from the Atkins, that how the categorization and all this take place, something, or you can give the answer is from the neural network point of view also. Design an experiment to compare the maintenance, shallow and elaborate level of information processing. Well, then you can have this kind of one experiment which is a logical connection, or one with the self-reference connection. You can design some experiment like that. I can do that way. Okay, great. I'll stop the recording at least so that to say that we are done.